Alrighty, well, this evening for our deep stretch, we're gonna get started in a comfortable seated posture. So some props that will come in handy if you don't already have them at the ready. At least one block, 2 blocks will be even better. And if you happen to have a bolster, that will be exceptionally lovely, especially towards the end of class. So as you're just kind of chilling in your comfortable seat, do yourself a favor. Bring one of your blocks to either long edge of your mat. That way, those will be there in a few minutes when we need them. And then just get resettled in your comfortable seat. Now that can be crisscross applesauce style in that traditional Sukhasana, or if that's uncomfortable on your hips or your knees, you might choose to let your legs go long in front of you, or you might even rest on your back today. But once you find wherever you can just be as much at ease as possible, let your eyelids close. Take a deep breath in. And open your mouth, let that whole breath go. Let's do that again. Eyes heavy, deep breath in. Open your mouth, let your breath go. One more time, fill up. And empty out. Just giving yourself permission right here at the beginning of your practice to know that no matter what happens, you showed up, and that is 90% of the work. Just taking a moment or two here to transition out of whatever you were doing before. Just becoming a little more present in what it is you're showing up for now. Maybe just noticing if there are a lot of thoughts still in your mind, or a lot of agitation still in your body. And with your eyes closed, imagine in your mind's eye a large volume knob. It doesn't have to be detailed, it's just a knob. And as you breathe slowly, visualize yourself turning that volume knob down just one notch. And then observe as the thoughts in your mind and the sensations in your body respond. Allow them to quiet down as you turn that volume down one more notch. Knowing that at any time throughout your practice this evening, you can use this little mental trick to sort of hack in and turn the volume down. And keeping your eyelids closed. And just a reminder, with this type of yoga, we hold postures for quite some time. That way we allow the benefits of those stretches to penetrate more than just the surface of our muscle tissues. So if you feel like things have been quiet or still for a very long time, it's unlikely that the internet has frozen. It's just that your mind is going to fill that time to make you feel like you've been there in eternity. So in those moments, just breathe a little more slowly and know that I will pull you out on the other side. Start to blink your eyes open. Notice right here, before we really truly get going, are there any intuitive movements that your body needs? Maybe a little side to side, If you like to pop and crack through your knuckles, maybe already your fingers, your toes, your wrists need a little attention. And then just know that we're gonna have this intuitive break between each posture. So at any point, if you feel like you need to let something go without instruction, you do you. Now, we wanna make sure that we're facing a short end of our yoga mat. More than likely, most of you already are. So you're gonna have a block to your left and a block to your right. Go ahead and lower yourself all the way down onto your back. Now, if you're pregnant, if you're in the first trimester, likely this won't feel super wonky for you. If you're past week 16 and lying on your back for more than 4 to 5 minutes starts to feel strange, you listen to that intuition and roll to one side when you need to. Otherwise, as you lower down onto your back, just take a moment to let your legs go long, your arms to reach up overhead. Take a full body stretch. Wonderful. And then keeping your right leg long, we're going to come to a little grounded tree posture. So your right leg stays long. Your left knee is going to bend out to the left side. So the sole of your left foot comes towards your inner right leg. And then grab a hold of that block on the left side of your mat and slide it underneath your outer knee. Perfect. So we want to have a little something there for biofeedback. Now your eyes can be open or closed here, but I want you to focus on engaging the muscles of just your left glutes. That is to say, start to squeeze just your left butt cheek. And let yourself giggle a little bit here because sometimes the glutes, the butt cheeks are a package deal. We can't squeeze one without the other tagging along, but just focus. And then soften everything. Good, now this time just focus on pressing your left thigh into the block. And notice if that's a similar sensation. By pressing down into the block on the left side, do you feel your left glutes fire? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe you feel some other things in your left hip. Next, exhale, relax everything. If anything about that was painful, maybe dial your block up a level. Otherwise, if you're happy where you are, your next several breaths are going to go like this. Inhale, engage your left glutes, press the knee into your block. Exhale, relax. Inhale, engage just the left glutes, press your knee into your block. Exhale, release. One more time together. Inhale, activate. And exhale, release. Keep going in this pattern. Maybe just noticing the subtle differences that over time start to make this a little less uncomfortable or a little less dynamic. Taking about 3 more rounds of inhaling to activate and exhaling to release. And at the end of that 3rd round, just let yourself stay exactly as you are, heavy, everything soft. Perhaps even removing that block or that prop from underneath your outer left thigh so that gravity can start to open up with a little bit more focused attention the muscles of your inner left thigh, the adductors. Just continue to breathe. Last few rounds of breath right here. Maybe not bringing every ounce of your attention back to the room around you, but just enough so to notice if anything about the left hip, the left thigh, the left knee has changed. And then establishing our pattern here, this is how we will exit all of our shapes this evening. As you take a deep breath in, as slowly as you can, start to let this posture go. That is to say, maybe hug that left knee in towards your chest. Maybe bend that right knee, bring the sole of your right foot to the floor. And then intuitively, any little movements, any little shifts or shimmies that you know you need, allow your body to find those. And then very simply, we'll switch sides. So this time, left leg is long. Right knee is going to drop out to the right side for that little grounded Vrikshasana tree pose. So sliding your prop or your block underneath your outer right thigh this time. We'll do just a couple rounds together. Focusing first just on the right glute. So think about engaging through your right butt cheek this time. And just notice what happens between your outer right knee and the block. Just notice. And then soften. Very good. Now that right foot and the left inner leg may or may not be touching, so don't worry so much about that. Instead, as you breathe in, start to press your right knee into the block, into the bolster, into the prop. Very good. Notice what's the same, what's different. And then release. Make any adjustments that you need to. Maybe your prop comes up a level higher. And then for your next several rounds of breath, inhale, engage right glutes, press your right knee into the block. Exhale, release. Inhale, engage right side. Exhale, soften. Inhale, engage. Exhale, soften. And keep going on your own. Allow yourself to focus as solely as possible on just that breathing rhythm. Fill up, engage. Empty out, release. How wonderful would it be if in those tough moments of life that are inevitable, you gave yourself the opportunity to just focus on breathing in and breathing out to get through it. That is why we call this a yoga practice. To practice in a very controlled, safe environment, how to get through life's little discomforts. Few more rounds. You might notice as you engage the glutes, that hip, that right hip maybe elevates 1/2 inch to 1 inch. And then when you soften, it drops back down. Even if you don't notice that, what can you feel deep in the hip socket? Right around this time, maybe start to let go of that controlled firing and releasing of the muscles, and instead just let gravity start to do its work. You might get rid of the prop. Just let yourself be. Last few rounds of breath. Maybe noticing if you're feeling antsy or quite at ease. There's no right or wrong, it's just where you are today. With your next inhale, just as we've been doing, as slowly as you can, start to release this posture. Noting any other movements that your body needs, side to side, hugging your knee to your chest, anything at all. And however you choose to get there, with as little effort as possible, bring yourself up to a comfortable seated posture. Now, when you're practicing at home, you might have carpet or you might be on a rug, so you'll have some cushioning here. But if you're on hardwood floor, or if you'd like to orient yourself so that your heels will have a little more padding for this straddle forward fold, what I recommend is rotating yourself about 90 degrees so that you're facing a long edge of your mat rather than a short edge. Your props might still come in handy, so just have them within arm's reach. And we're gonna get started with a pretty conservative straddle. So just widen through your heels. And then notice right away if your hips, your tailbone, your hamstrings, your inner thighs start to tell you some very mean things. Great, acknowledge those sensations, and then just remember we're here for a while, so time is going to be very, very effective. It's going to be much more effective than any mean thoughts you try and force upon your body here. So beginning, maybe not even wide enough to feel a super intense stretch. You're going to take a big breath in. Think about getting as tall as you can through your spine. And then exhale, start to walk your fingertips forward. Spine can round a little bit here. That's totally fine. Maybe even dropping your chin in towards your chest. Now, the moment you start to feel some stretching in the back of the thighs, that is what we're after. So hang out where you are. If you need a little bit more instruction, feel free to listen as I offer you some more variations. If you're happy-ish where you are, just tune me out. So a few other options here. If you'd like to take your straddle a little bit wider, feel free to widen as much as you'd like. If you feel like all of your hip weight is rocking backwards, it might benefit you to slide a block underneath your seat. That's going to help tip things forward. Another great use for your props is to create a little forearm or forehead stand. So as you start to lean forward, you've got a place for your arms to rest. You might even have a place for your forehead to rest. So knowing that we've been here already for about 40 seconds, any little last adjustments that you need to make this as supported as possible, go ahead and make those adjustments now. And then as you settle in for the long haul, just maybe close the eyes, let your breath soften. This might be a great place to visualize that volume knob. And just let yourself go. And as a studio this week, we've been discussing the concept of jivamukti, or freedom while living. Directly translated, jivamukti means fully liberated while alive. And what strikes me personally as the most interesting about that definition is the emphasis on freedom while living, as if some of us come upon this idea of freedom as only being something that we truly encounter at the end, when living is no longer within our grasp. So Nina Simone says that freedom exists in an absence of fear. So as you are chilling in this potentially uncomfortable moment, maybe notice what sensations, what thoughts, what emotions are most present in your mind. Either dial it up or dial it back. And then start to ponder as a short meditation, what is it in your life that makes you feel afraid? And as you think of those things, maybe get to the root of it. If there's anything you need to change about your posture, now is a lovely time. Maybe adding in more or taking out some of your props. And then just come back to that idea, what is it that scares you and how would your life benefit from those fears being banished? If you feel as though you are currently free in this life, how much more free would you feel if fear did not exist? Take a deep breath in, and as slowly as you can, start to make your way back up out of this forward fold. Maybe notice the rush of relief that comes as you start to slide your heels back together, getting rid of any props that are in your way. And as always, notice if there's any side to side, forward and back, any intuitive movements that will allow all of that shifting and changing to settle in. And then heading into our next posture, we're gonna take deer pose, or some folks know it as a Z sit. So it doesn't matter what direction you're facing. And also lefts and rights might get a little complicated. So just know we've got side one and side two. It'll be just fine. So I'm going to begin by externally rotating my right hip. So that means I'm going to bend my right knee to the right side. Now I'm going to internally rotate my left hip. So what that means is I'm going to bend my left knee and send my left foot over to my left side. Great. Now a good place to begin is to maybe connect the sole of your right foot to the top of your left thigh or your left knee. Very good. Folks who have very mobile hips, this might not feel like much at first. So if you need to separate your left knee and your right foot, that's going to give you some more space to work with. Just like with anything, you're going to find how to custom fit this for you. Great. Take a tiny little rotation towards your right knee and let your fingers just rest on the floor. Now you're going to focus on your left hip, okay? So take a deep breath in. I want you to think about picking your left hip up off the floor. It's a very sassy move. And then exhale, think about pushing that left hip as close to the floor as you can. Good, let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, left hip lifted up. Almost like you're stretching out through your belly. And exhale, left hip comes down. 1 more. Inhale, left hip lifts. Good. Exhale, send that left hip down. Now start to crawl your fingers over towards the left side. And for the next several moments, you're going to focus on keeping that left hip pressing down into the floor. If you feel something's happening in your left hip, tune me out and continue as you are. If you're not feeling much of a stretch at all in the left side, this is where we're going to start to fine tune. Maybe send that entire left thigh back several inches. And now focus once again on sitting back, sending your left butt cheek into the mat a little bit more deeply. Wonderful. Continue to breathe. And continue to release. Now that we've passed kind of that initial threshold of getting used to where we're going to be, notice if you're leaning forward, leaning left, or leaning right. And if you can, bring your torso back to center. And now focus once again on dropping that left hip down into the mat. Your hands can rest wherever they need to allow you to focus on dropping your hips. Feel free to continue finding those little fine-tuning moments here, maybe changing up how deeply or how slightly the bend in the knees is happening. Just noticing that every little adjustment is going to change how you're feeling this in your left hip. So when you find that aha spot, stay there. Try and soften the ankles, soften the toes. Likewise, soften your jaw. Deep breath in. Open mouth, slow breath out. And as slowly as you can, as you inhale, maybe lean to your right side and extend both legs long in front of you. Give yourself a moment here just to notice how the left, the right hips feel, how the knees feel, the ankles. And then either keeping the legs long in front of you or taking that little yogi sukhasana seat. We'll send our attention just for a moment to the neck. So take a nice big breath in, reach your fingers all the way up overhead. And as you exhale, we'll side bend over to the right. So drop your right fingers, and then I'm a little teapot style. Lean yourself over to that right side. Good, now bend through your left elbow and send your left fingers to catch your right ear. And now we're gonna get fancy. Start to lengthen through your right arm. Your torso is coming through center. And you're gonna pull that left ear towards your left shoulder while your right fingers continue to reach down and to the right. Maybe you lift those right fingers up off the floor and start to search around. The more you move those fingers in space, the more likely you are to find those really gnarly spots in your neck and shoulders. And then release your right hand down. Use your left hand to help bring your head back through center. And then notice that it's time to go to the other side. Big breath in, fingers lift. And exhale, left hand lowers, side bend up and over that left side. Very good. Bend your right elbow, right fingers catch your left ear. As you bring yourself back through center, right ear drops towards right shoulder. Left fingers are gonna reach down and to the left. And eventually, you'll levitate those left fingers off the mat and start to fine tune that stretch for yourself. Releasing your left hand, using your right fingers to bring your head back through center. Any little movements you need to recalibrate or to equalize the sides of the neck, go ahead. And then we'll set up for deer pose on the second side. So if you've got your legs bent already, you might be halfway there. We're gonna externally rotate the left hip, so left knee is dropping to the left. We're gonna internally rotate through the right hip. So right knee is bending, right foot is gonna shoot out to your right side. Very good. Now, there's a 50-50 chance that this is your good side. For me, this is definitely the side that has more opportunity. So give yourself a minute to fine tune. Notice if you need that left foot and right knee to be touching or if there's some space between the two. And we're gonna take a little twist over to the left. Fingers are just gonna rest on the floor. There we go. Focus on that right hip. Here we go. Inhale, right hip lifts. Exhale, right hip drops. Good. Inhale, lift. Exhale, drop. Inhale, lift. Exhale, really focus on sending that right hip towards the floor. Note it may or may not touch. And then start to walk your fingers over to the right, just making everything that much more difficult. So just keeping your fingers here for a moment. Kind of pushing through that initial round of sensation. Maybe questioning what feels muscular, what feels skeletal. Can you identify the edges of your anatomical possibilities? That is where true self-awareness in the yoga realm starts to blossom. Knowing our limitations. And moving within them. Now, only as you're ready, start to bring your torso back to a more neutral configuration. This entire situation might make you feel like you are going to drop to one side. So if you need to use a hand as a kickstand, that's totally fine. But otherwise, we're going to keep on keeping on. Think about setting that right hip down towards the floor. Notice if anything is different now that your chest is a bit more upright. Just continue to breathe. Last few rounds of breath. And this time, as you inhale and slowly let that posture go, maybe notice what has changed, how dramatic that change has been. And if now, with long legs ahead of you, your hip sockets feel slightly more liberated. Any little intuitive movements that you need, let those come in. Wonderful. And then orient yourselves, if you're not already, facing the short edge of your mat. We're gonna lower down onto our backs once again. No props are needed here. We're just gonna take a short twist on either side. So if you are pregnant, you're gonna take this twist, the second variation that I offer with wide feet. If you're not pregnant and you like a deeper twist, you're gonna take the first variation that I offer. So as you lower down onto your back, you're gonna float your knees to hover over top of your hips. So this is almost like an upside down tabletop pose. Arms come out to a T. Deeper twist variation, you're gonna exhale, drop both knees over to the left side. Now, if you're pregnant or looking for a slightly more restorative twist option, you're gonna lower your feet back down to the floor, step your feet as wide as the edges of your mat, and then just drop your knees over to the left. So essentially your legs are in the same configuration as they were for deer pose, but gravity is working on you a little bit differently. Of course, if this puts any pressure on your knees, you can adjust things however you need to, maybe sliding your feet closer together. No matter where you are in this twist, take a deep breath in, reach more space between your wrists. Think about sliding left wrist farther to the left, right wrist farther to the right. And keeping this twist fairly short. As you inhale, come back through center. We'll all meet with our feet flat on the floor. Very good. Doing a little windshield wiper here. Dropping your knees from side to side. Just massaging your low back. And then whatever variation you took on the twist for side one, those same variations exist for side two. So either floating your knees on top of your hips, dropping your knees to the right, or keeping your feet connected to the mat, wide feet, drop your knees to the right side. Good, doing your best to soften your glutes. If you have a lot of quad tension, you might be feeling this in a couple of different places. So do your best to just intuitively shift to a place where you can turn everything off. Take a nice deep breath in. And a full breath out. Good, next inhale, slowly bring yourself back through center. And one more time, any little movements that you need. Wonderful. So if you have a bolster, now is the time to really put that guide to use. Go ahead, however you need to, rock yourself up to a seat just so you can see where we're headed next. Our peak posture is a Supta Baddha Konasana, or a reclined butterfly pose. So we've really been getting the hips ready for what's coming next. So if you have a bolster, I'm going to show you option one. If you don't have a bolster and you're working with blocks, I'll show you option two, and then I'll also show you a completely prop-free option number three. So if you're working with a bolster, you're going to drop that bolster towards the back of your mat, slide your hips right up against it, slowly lower yourself down, and from here, soles of the feet come to touch, knees open up nice and wide. Now we're going to be here for a little while, so maybe fine tune how close in or far away your heels are from your hips. If you're not working with a bolster, we can totally make this happen with blocks. So the blocks are going to be configured on your mat. The first block is going to be wide on its lowest level. The second block is going to be wide on its second highest level. So here, as you lower yourself back, the block closest to you is going to catch you just on top of your shoulder blades. That is to say, your shoulder blades will be flat against the block. And that block farther away from you is going to catch the back of your head like a pillow. Same thing with the legs. Feet together, knees open wide. And last but not least, your third option without any props is to rest flat on your back, soles of the feet touching, knees opening wide for your traditional Supta Baddha Konasana. Wherever you are, just knowing that you are right as you are supposed to be. Throughout yoga history, yoga student hasn't always been the phrase that's used to describe what we are. Instead, an aspirant is a more apt term, someone who aspires towards the aims and goals of what yoga teaches. And some of the most dedicated aspirants on the path of Jivamukti, liberation, change out that title of aspirant for Jivamuktan when, after study and practice and meditation, they finally realize liberation while living. And while likely none of us have the means or the intensely dedicated interest to ignore all of society, to let go of every familial relationship that we have and strike out into the woods on our own to study yoga. What we can do is pass into and out of this state of Jivamukti. We can delight in these little moments where we don't have to be anything other than who we are. We don't have to be a partner, a mother, a father, a sibling, a worker. You can just be you and find the divine freedom within that. Take a deep breath in, a full breath out. If you're happy here, feel free to stay. If you're ready to pass into a more traditional Shavasana or final resting posture, with your next breath in, slowly release this Supta Baddha Konasana. And if you know how you'd like to orient yourself with or without props for Shavasana, by all means, start to make your way into that resting posture. If you need a reminder of what Shavasana is, traditionally, you're flat on your back with long limbs. Sometimes it's nice to have a bolster under your knees or under your spine. But essentially, this is the place where all the work of the practice settles in and you completely release. Notice where your thoughts have traveled. And gently try to identify those thoughts one by one. Not judging them, not questioning why they're there. Simply making a little inventory before you slowly start to nudge yourself back. Encouraging your inhales to become a bit deeper. And likewise, allow your exhales to become a bit slower. And only as it feels comfortable, start to make your way back to an easy seated posture. Once you find your shoulders above your hips, your head above your shoulders, allow your palms to touch, thumbs to hover at the center of your chest, and just notice how you feel. Maybe the same, maybe a little different, but the level of advancement of your yoga practice has very little to do with how many complicated poses you can do or how many ways you can stand on your hands. But instead, it has everything to do with how well you can decipher those subtle differences, those subtle cues that make up the language of how your body and your mind communicate. So allow practice today to be simply the practice of learning your language with a little more fluency. With light, with love, with deep gratitude. Namaste.